Hi, my name is Rob, and I'm the discipleship minister at the Grace Chapel Church of Christ. We've been going through a series of lessons on Sunday mornings called You on Mission, where we encourage people to take on the mission of Jesus Christ. Jesus himself was sent to this world to seek and save the lost. And he encourages his disciples to go and make disciples of all nations. So we kind of inherit this dream. We kind of inherit this mission as we are now his disciples that have been made by other disciples to go and make disciples. And if we want to be better at helping people find Jesus, then who better to learn from than Jesus himself? So we've been going through a variety of the different kind of ways of Christ and methods of Christ to learn from those and to find the principles of what he did and ask ourselves, how can we apply these things to our lives? So that being said, this overview is to look at how Jesus asked questions. One of the things that Jesus often does in his ministry is he asks questions. And this is somewhat surprising because Jesus would have had all of the answers, right? And yet when he is asked a question, a lot of times he doesn't answer with a question. When he's asked a question, a lot of times he doesn't give the straight answer. He will return that question with a question. The other thing he would often do is answer the situation or the question with a story, and we'll cover that in the next video, so stay tuned to that. Also, if you're interested in some of the other things that Jesus did, and this is the first video you're watching, check out one of the other 5 or 6 videos we've done, some of the topics we've covered, and hopefully they can be helpful to you as well. But Jesus asked a question. What I'm going to do is, Jesus asked a lot of questions, from the time he is first introduced to us as a young man in the temple, asking his parents, well, didn't you know that this is where I would be? And to being on the cross where he asks his Father in heaven, my God, why have you forsaken me? Questions are a big part of just all of our interactions and how we communicate. But Jesus does use a handful of questions, especially when he interacts with his disciples and other followers and with people who are just kind of approaching him at different times, and he uses these things very effectively. Today, for this video, I'm just going to highlight 5 of these questions and fit them into 4 different categories to ask us, how can we be better users of the question and different kinds of questions as we interact with people. So the first question that I want to highlight is what I'm calling the Jesus question. So in Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 and following, Jesus is interacting with his disciples and he says to them, well, who do the people say I am? What do they think of Jesus? And then as they answer that, he turns to them and says, well, who do you say that I am? So such a masterful way of interacting with people, especially if you're not looking to put somebody on the hot seat, right? And you're maybe not trying to be confrontational. Talk to anybody and don't talk to them about the church. Don't talk to them about Christians. Talk to them about Jesus. Hey, when you look at the world today, or you kind of interact with people, maybe people in your family, people at your workplace, people in this town, what do people think about Jesus? And then after they answer that question, you can then segue into, oh, that's really interesting. Well, how about you? What do you think about Jesus? It becomes a natural flowing conversation rather than just putting somebody on the spot and saying, what do you think about God? What do you think about Jesus? Do you want to come to church with me? All right, so we see Jesus, even in that interacting with his own disciples, kind of uses this methodology. Who's Jesus? I mean, he's standing there right in front of them and he asks that question. What did the people say I am? So Matthew 16, the Jesus question. The next question I wanted to highlight is the eternity question. So also in Matthew 16, just a little bit after that, Jesus will then say a famous, well-known line, what good is it for a man if he gains a whole world and yet forfeits his own soul, his very soul? And this is an important question that we can be interacting with people who are not yet disciples, who are disciples, is thinking about eternity, thinking about their souls and the final resting place of their souls. What's really important in life? What's going to happen when we die? What good is it if you can gain everything in this world and yet at the end you forfeited your soul? So these are are good things for people to think about. And, people are thinking about, at some point in everyone's life, they're going to have a time that they think of their own mortality, right? And they think about death, and they think about, is there anything that comes after this life? So these are definitely good talking points with people. We don't have to tell them that they're going to hell, or tell them that heaven is real. We can ask them, what do they think about how they're investing their time and what's going to happen next? And that can lead into the next conversations. The next two questions that we'll look at that Jesus asked, I think I'm calling the deep dive questions, or the deeper meaning questions, the deeper desire question. So the first one comes in Matthew chapter 11, verses 7 through 9. And here Jesus is talking about John the Baptist. And he asked them things about when you were seeking John the Baptist, what were you seeking? Were you looking for somebody that was just like a really good teacher? Were you looking for some novelty? Were you looking for somebody dressed in fancy clothes? What was it? No, you were looking for a prophet. You were seeking what God was wanting to communicate to people. And John was a prophet, and John was a great prophet. And then he goes on to kind of sing John's praises. But the point here is to ask the question, what are you seeking? When people are looking, there's an idea of what's the question behind the question. And in every conversation and every interaction that we have, there's a surface level to it, but we can always go a little deeper. You just ask this question, well, what was that about? What are you really looking for? What are you really seeking? For people that are engaging with us, we can, it's not just maybe start the conversation with this, but if we kind of sense that and how things are going in interactions, such a great way to dig deeper. Well, what is it that you're really looking for? Why are you asking me these questions? Why are we having this conversation? What is it that you really want? It's a question about deeper desire. And then Jesus does that again in John chapter 5, when he talks to a man who is ill and has been waiting by this pool that has been known to heal people, but he's been waiting there for quite a long time. And Jesus asks him quite simply, do you want to get well? So here you are, and you're by this pool where healing should be the obvious thing, but you've been here so long, and you're saying because you have no one to help you, but what is the problem really? Maybe it is that you don't really want to get well. And so this is a good question to ask people at some point in time. Here you are, we're in what is it that, again, what is it that you really want? Why are you hanging around the church? Why are you asking questions about Jesus? Are you really wanting to follow? Are you really open to your life changing? Or is this something else? And then the last question is from Luke chapter 10, 25 and following. And Jesus interacts with a man who had been well known in his area to be filled with demons, and just a demon-possessed man chained to a tree. He was hurting himself, risk of hurting others. And Jesus addresses this man and he says, what is your name? And it's just a powerful question. In all of the evil that seems to be there and all of the fear that this man evokes in others, Jesus cuts through it all by saying, who are you? What's your name? And such a powerful lesson for us as Christians as we interact with people. We can write people off, we can make assumptions about people, but really such a powerful way to start a relationship and interact with someone is to say, I'm not going to get caught up in your appearances or your reputation. I want to know you. What's your name? What's your heart? What's your life all about? Tell me. I'm interested in you and in your soul and in your life. So 5 questions that Jesus asked in his interactions with people that we can easily adopt and find ways that we can ask of the people that are in our lives as we are going on the mission that Jesus went on.